Hello everyone, I am Tara Power. I'm the Partnerships Lead at StartSpace. It's great to be here on day 2 at the Future Founders Festival, and I'm welcoming you to another great panel, one which I've been looking forward to. Welcome to Empower Communities with Wesa Chau, CEO of Cultural Intelligence and representative on VicGov's Anti-Racism Task Force. We have Chris Lee, Study Melbourne Program Lead. We have Tarzon Budhathoki from Creative Natives and Stepping Zone, co-founder. And our wonderful moderator, Clara Tang, head of MELD Community. We're presenting today as part of the Future Founders Festival in partnership with Study Melbourne and StartSpace, powered by State Library Victoria. Now, I would like to acknowledge all Aboriginal clans of Victoria on behalf of the panel and pay respect to their elders, past and present. We also acknowledge and pay respects to Indigenous peoples around the world. Now, before we begin the session, I'm going to run through some housekeeping information for you. To participate in the audience Q&A for this session, use the Slido Ask a Question box. We really want to hear from you. This is where you can ask questions for our festival presenters. We'll get to as many as we can at the end of the session. To interact with each other and make comments, please use Join the Conversation chat box. You can also react to the event using the emoji bar along the bottom of the live stream panel. This is my favorite thing at the moment, so do use it. We'd love to hear what you're thinking and feeling. Now, also, you can share what you're watching and enjoying during the festival by using our hashtag. That's FFP21. Now, thanks again for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this session. I know I've been looking forward to it. I'll hand over now to Clara Tang to kick us off.
Thanks, Tara. I'm Clara, and I'm really honored to be here and invited as head of MELD magazine. So we're here to moderate this panel, and aside from just my role at MELD, I'm also a finance and insights analyst at Edrolo, which is an edtech startup. Aside from this, I'm an international student that's currently based in Singapore, bringing this to you on your screen just 2 hours behind. So I'm super excited to moderate because the work that we do at MELD is pretty much all about this. Just taking a quick pause to understand or explain a bit more about what MELD Community does. We're a not-for-profit organization that is dedicated to the well-being of a healthy international student community. And we have 2 arms of the business. One is a digital news outlet, and the other is our annual flagship event, Melbourne International Student Conference. So MELD Community is backed by a board made up of ex-international students, as well as an illustrious alumni that spans the globe. For me as an international student that's taking in this room, it is a massive honor to see this culminate as a key stakeholder conversation, and with current and past international students, as well as government representation. So I'm sure everyone is looking forward to hearing from these people as much as I am. So whilst I say I'm here to moderate on empowered communities, I'm really here to inform myself and learn through your experiences as well. With that, let's get started. To begin with, I'd like to go around the room to invite everyone to introduce yourselves, commencing with Wesa, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Wesa Chau. So I am I'm CEO of Cultural Intelligence. So I do consulting for organizations to help them understand the power of cultural diversity. I have been a founder previously as well, apart from starting my own business. But I also, when I was at university, I started the Australian Federation of International Students. So we can probably talk a little bit about that as well. And also last year, at the height of racism, I also started Resilience Against Racism to support people against racism. So I'm really looking forward to today's conversation and see how we go.
Awesome. And with the next, let's have Tarzon.
Hi, everyone. Firstly, I want to thank StartSpace Victoria, State Library, and Study Melbourne for actually inviting me. I am a current international student studying at MIT, and I'm also a co-founder of a non-profit organization called Stepping Zone. So similar to Clara, we are also trying to build up a community of international students to support each other, but we are mostly focused into the part of employability. I'm actually product of Study Melbourne Leadership Lab Impact. Me with 7 other international students during mid-COVID 2020, we decided to bring up this idea of supporting community. And since then, we have been able to do a couple of events with City of Whittlesea and also the Couch Melbourne. And we believe that if we have a community of international students who knows that how much important it is to get into professional role and to support each other, and we definitely together we could support each other and help in a way to empower each other. And I'm really looking forward for today's discussion. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you. And last but not least, Chris.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Lee. Very humbled to be here on this amazing panel. I'm the program manager on a new program called the Empowered program, which supports a whole range of initiatives, including the Future Founders program, Leadership Labs, Career Catalyst, to name a few. I'm really passionate about entrepreneurship, employability, and supporting disadvantaged and vulnerable people. I'm also a proud member of the LGBTIQ+ community, and I've also, many years ago, founded a not-for-profit called Alt-F, or Altruistic Ferry, which actually supports corporate and businesses through the art of giving. So really happy to be here as part of this discussion around what empowered means and what the importance of community.
Amazing, thank you. So just going on a little bit from that, given that we have everyone in this space here, just speaking to each of your personal experiences, what does an empowered community look like? And what are the challenges you have in bringing this to life?
Yeah, I might start. Yeah, so I guess when it comes to empowered communities, from my perspective, when we talk about empowered communities, it's really when people are able to achieve what they wanted to be able to, and to support communities in that, to be able to do that. And I remember, I guess, particularly because I used to work with disability organizations, and one of the discussions that we keep having is how do we actually support the people so that they can do things themselves, and rather than actually doing things for people, because sometimes when we see people in need, we sometimes want to jump in and actually do things for the people, rather than actually supporting them so that they can do it for themselves. And I think from my perspective, empowered community is one that particularly for international students, to be able to support international students in whatever areas that they want to succeed in, and be able to guide them through the process as opposed to actually help them do it.
Amazing. Yeah, it's that saying, right, where you, rather than to teach a person give the person a fish, you teach the person how to fish, and that's pretty much right there, spot on.
That's it. Yeah.
At there.
Yeah, adding to that as well, I feel that my personal experience is like being in a part of empowered community will be that, like as Wesa mentioned as well, it is not about like helping them, rather facilitating as a teaching them ways to do it. As I mentioned before as well, I actually got into the empowered community through Study Melbourne Leadership Lab for Impact, and it was that community that helped like few of the international students to come together and actually start something of their own, like maybe non-profit or also for the entrepreneurs space. I believe for me, an empowered community is something that would support each other, not in a way of, in a generic way of mentioning about this is the way we could do, but rather to support each other. For example, from a perspective of international student, one of the key things that we always have to wonder is that whether or not we're going to get a professional job in Australia. But like getting into this professional world as well, I was recently involved in a company called Creative Natives, and I found out that a lot of international students are working in huge companies. And if we are able to build a community that support each other, showing how they did it, it will be really inspiration for other people as well, to follow their footstep as well. And because it's not sometimes, empathizing, only an international student can easily empathize and express an international student. Like other people are also super duper helpful, but when there is a community of international students that support each other, it's also easy to share the suffering and also your problem that you're having at the moment. So for me, a community will be that supports each other in more than just in a generic way.
Yeah, no, point on. Chris?
Yeah, this is a really big topic and there's so much to say, but I'm really interested in terms of the topic of empowerment and empowering communities, the role that those in privileged positions, like potentially myself, for all intents and purposes, the white middle-aged male can play in terms of providing a platform and in terms of providing a space for those that may not have that space and be empowered in parts of the community. I've been very privileged to work, for example, with Aboriginal Victorians in supporting their entrepreneurial, self-determination and economic participation to achieve, some pretty amazing outcomes in terms of being empowered. And I'm really interested, as part of this festival and this panel, what does that mean for the international student community? How can we really shift the dial and the narrative in terms of that self-determination question for international students and move past the idea that international students are just a revenue stream? They're much more than that. They're such a dynamic and integral part of our society, our heritage, and what makes Victoria and Australia really special. So how can we ensure that international students are really empowered and and we can support them in terms of achieving equality, empowerment and equity as they live and study and work in Australia and Victoria.
No, that's a great point. Tarzon, do you want to add anything to this here?
Yeah, I think what we really need to look into is that really going to the student and not just like one or two students, but doing it, like talking with many of them through the means of university or the unions that are available and really going within them. Because I know a lot of students are stuck in overseas and they're in the state of, thinking whether or not we should study. Because yesterday I had a chat with my father as well, and he was talking that one of our neighbors' son, he's still in Nepal as well. And he's still in this dilemma of whether or not he need to enroll in next semester, because there is still this dilemma of the border closing and stuff. So I think what we really need to be looking is that going really into international students and asking them about what do they really want, like prioritizing the key factor of because a lot of countries are in lockdown at the moment. So how we could really support them, even though they are not in Australia, how could we support them is and for the mental health issue, because a lot of students even stuck over here, like India, Nepal, and a lot of countries are in verge of lockdown. For myself, we might have some mental health challenges as well. So we need to understand what is the really key priority at the moment. Is it the visa thing, or is it the mental health issue, or is it really the employment factor that we need to support international students, or is it the university fees? So I think this is really a huge topic to discuss, as Chris mentioned before as well. So it's not just one part of the part could do anything. Like we combining, if we try together from the university part, a government part, and also organizers such as Study Melbourne, we could lead together and really find out what these international students really want. That way we could come up with a solution, and then always be a key destination for international students. Because now we could see a lot of people are trying to consider Canada, which is not a new thing for a lot of us, but as this country has provided so much opportunity for international students and so much of infrastructure, so we could really provide support for them only when we go into them and ask them what they really want, I would say.
No, that's a really great point. It's pretty much, yeah, like just to add on to that, it's all about, you know, understanding what what everyone on the ground is experiencing, and that is probably the same with almost any social issue out there, and particularly with international students, because the level, I guess, the level of how seen we are is not as obvious, but I mean, that's also why Chris does the excellent work that he does, in terms of taking care of, you know, international students' welfare, and in the great work that, you know, he does through government. Amazing. I'm just going to move on to the next question. So the next one is, what is a memorable piece of less than positive feedback that you've received in your respective journeys? And how have you overcome this with the support of your communities? Any stories anyone want to kick us off with?
Less than, yeah, not so positive feedback. I guess for me, which will be very surprising for a lot of international students, but I've had feedback where I had bosses who tell me your writing is really, really bad. Or, you know, I'll have people who say, oh, you know, it must be because of your culture, because your writing is not very good. And, you know, for international students, particularly for those who, you know, are new to Australia, will probably listen to me and think, well, you sound Australian, so you must be Australian, right? So this is something that I guess that do happen still, even for people who were raised in Australia. And so, yeah, so when I sometimes hear international students say, oh, you know, I've got an accent and my English is not very good, I'm like, don't worry about it. I don't think people actually can tell, because you know, they for people who commented on my English, it's like, well, I reckon if it was a person who is not of an Asian appearance, they probably would not have commented on it. So it's actually quite an interesting thing. So I actually find a lot of more support from my international students friends during that time. So having people who really understand the experiences really help situations like this. And be able to talk it through with friends, and having that support to be able to overcome it as well, and to understand, you know, where people are actually coming from, and move on, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, Chris, go for it.
I was just going to ask, Wesa, what do you think government can do to help in terms of some of those issues you've outlined, which we realise are still, you know, still so many barriers in terms of employment and you know, career progression and mobility for all different types of groups. What do you think government can do to help?
I guess for people from a different cultural backgrounds, it's really to help employers understand, to help them really understand that I mean, depending on the role, English should not be the main focus of any role. As long, I mean, there are roles that requires that, but then at the same time, there are many roles that doesn't necessarily require, you know, perfect English, and half the time you can actually get editors if there's a large piece of writing, as long as it's actually your thinking that's more important as opposed to your actual writing. And I think that's probably something that I sometimes find it quite interesting, because it's almost like, well, if they're right, if there are grammatical errors, it's almost like then they can't understand what you're writing. But then it should be the content that really matters, as opposed to how you express it. So I don't know if that is something that that people can assist, I guess, in the mainstream community, whether, you know, to help them understand what it really truly means to understand content as opposed to the expression, and that would really have a flow-on effect to other things as well, I think. Not just employment, but also having I guess less experiences for international students, or even migrants and refugees, to feel more welcome. And I mean, even for me, I've had people also who say, I was actually riding on the plane, and someone just looked over and go, "Oh, you write very well English for an Asian person." So it's like, well, I grew up in Australia, so, you know, what do you expect? So it is things like that, and having the communities to better understand different communities.
That yeah, thank you for sharing from your heart. I think that one was particularly resonant because language is a powerful medium. I mean, that's something I think everyone in the room can agree. But the question is, I guess, the broader question possibly is, if, say, English, for instance, isn't someone else's first language, does that necessarily mean they can't deliver at that role? Or is it a matter of having the right medium, possibly, to do that? So yeah, no, thank you. Tarzon, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, but I think like my experience has also been in the same way. So one of the employer in Sydney that I had a couple of years back was, they were mentioning that one of the main reason people, mostly from Asian background, they don't get the job is because they can't pronounce a name well in English. Like whenever I talk to a real Australian person like Chris, when I mention him about my name, they will definitely feel that it is Tarzon, not Tarzon, because I don't know why, because maybe my accent is a bit stronger, but I think we can't really judge someone a potentiality just because of their language or the accent they are using it, because a lot of companies that I have seen recently has super duper talented people who are from Colombia or India or any country, you know, and like potentiality has nothing to do with accent. My experience, like that I had like this negative experience would be during my college in 2018 when I was really super new in Australia. I had this lecturer who was talking about, you know, like people from this country only work in McDonald's and stuff. I didn't know that it was a racist comment back then. But after 6 months, when I actually could understand the meaning of racism as well coming to Australia, and then how some of the people would treat us, really hit me bad. And I started finding out like how many people are experiencing the same way. And I found out that there are people who actually support, like whenever we feel this kind of trauma, because I was really traumatized, and that actually closed my mindset as feeling as if, oh, are we really not going to prosper in this country? Because I came to this country with the hope of you know, exploring the country and also my professional experiences. And after I came over here with seeing a lot of international students like myself, like like having problem in similar way, I wanted to start a community. But I think because of the community, I was able to cope up with this stuff and know where actually we could go and approach if this sort of incident happens. So it is all about like when you have a community that knows stuff already. Like for example, Chris Lee, even though he is a white privileged man, he's always there to empathize us. Because I remember the first conversation that we had, it was I was so amazed by the way he said his thought about my you know, my idea of starting a nonprofit and stuff. And I believe that sometimes we, even though we might feel afraid of, oh, he is a white guy, we might not be able to communicate well with him, but there are people who, being white, also support, you know, brown people or like Asian background people who have that accent, you know. So I think that would might be my experience.
Oh, lovely. Chris, would you like to add anything to this thread? Yeah.
Yeah, bursting with things to say, but I'm just worried I've been mispronouncing Tarzon's name, so I should practice on that. I guess just a couple of things, just in terms of the idea around, key skills and talent of, of international students and other groups where, language may not be the strongest skill set, is that we run some amazing programs, including the Global Student Talent Accelerator Program and the Global Victoria Intellect Program, just as a quick plug. And those programs really work closely with industry and employers around students' key innovation and entrepreneurial skills, and also, their amazing research and skills, and to be able to think outside the box. And I think a lot of employers actually do get that. And what we need to do is to celebrate and champion those employers and parts of industry that understand that, diversity equals profitability, because it equates to innovation and being able to, to support business growth and diversification. The other thing I just wanted to share in terms of my experience is, even though for all intents and purposes, I look like a typical Aussie, I mean, I've experienced pretty significant homophobia in my career. And I guess it's always what I've found in terms of the theme around being empowered is that in all our sort of different ways, being the other, we've become sort of ambassadors for our communities, and really have been on a bit of a journey, with our respective peers or employers or colleagues and neighbours around, challenging those stereotypes and redefining those stereotypes. And that resilience, I think, is what defines us, and is a really strong asset for many of us, and something I'm really interested in celebrating and exploring.
Amazing. Chris, I just want to center on your point a little bit and dig a little deeper. You mentioned about the Empowered program, and I was hoping to understand a little bit more about what are, like empowering mechanisms and resources delivered by the government to equip international students with confidence to, participate within the Melbourne or Victoria community.
So, sorry, you want to know a bit more about the Empowered program?
Yeah, and also, other empowering mechanisms and resources that the government has delivered, just so that, international students can know a bit more about what's out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, Study Melbourne provides, as one example, because the Victorian government has some pretty amazing initiatives, nation-leading Australian-first initiatives, whether it be, gender equality or, a treaty process for Aboriginal Victorians, or LGBTIQ plus equality. I mean, we've just launched this amazing Pride Centre down at St Kilda, one of the first in Australia and the biggest in the world. There's so many great initiatives, Victorian government initiatives, to be, to really make sure that we're really inclusive as a society. But specifically with Study Melbourne and the work that I lead on, we have some key pillars and themes to empower students as a strength-based approach in terms of building capacity. I think we should be really careful in terms of sometimes, inadvertently reinforcing stereotypes and reinforcing the idea that, the international student community is always in crisis. We have, and don't get me wrong, I mean, we're in lockdown 5.0 at the moment. A lot of us are really struggling and suffering, and particularly in terms of support for students. I know, Clara, for example, you can't come back to Victoria, and we have a number of programs that we are working with and supporting students offshore, which is a really new and way for us to work. We have study hubs that we're establishing offshore where students can meet and connect and maintain those connections with Victoria. But we also have a whole range of mental health support, counselling support, access to free legal services. So students are empowered with the right skills and tools you know, so they can, in the very first instance, you know, be safe and supported. And I guess the work I'm leading on is that sort of next step in terms of how can we ensure that people can be the best version of themselves, and how can we help students, you know, really achieve their aspirations and goals. So
amazing. No, that's all really lovely. Yeah. What are and I guess this question is out to the broader team. Just on this note, and in terms of your personal experiences as well, what are some of the ways in which people can stay informed and serve the wider community in Melbourne? And I guess speaking to each of your experiences, how have you accessed resources as well?
Actually, I wanted to ask a question to Chris as well, and then I'll jump up with the question. You mentioned about like international student can get free legal support as well, and I've seen a couple of community within international student space. They wanted legal services. Like there has been a few incidents within hospitality space and also workspace. And how can an international student, when they have these issues in the workplace, which could be dropped into legal services, how can they contact this free support if it is like after office hours? Because I've seen Study Melbourne provides services, but whenever it is after hours, they can't really access it. So how does that work?
yeah, look, we might share the link to the Study Melbourne website, which goes into a lot of detail around our legal services support. We have 24-hour a hotline as well, where you can access our you know, a range of services and counsellors. We do encourage people to, you know, to book a time, because with our legal team, because they obviously want to get to the core of the issue and spend some time working through the issue. But the service in terms of specialised legal support, particularly around work rights and work exploitation, is excellent. And so, you know, the legal team that we have, it's through a service called the International Student Employment Accommodation Legal Service. It's on our website. You know, they have recovered, you know, in excess, I can't remember the figure, I think it's something like $800,000 just last year in, they've recovered that and, you know, lost wages. So, you know, we're really committed and passionate about work rights and work exploitation. The other thing to say about that is Victoria has the first legislation in Australia around wage theft. And also the Victorian government is running a pilot around secure work, where vulnerable and casual workers can access, you know, entitlements like sick leave and stuff like that. And there's a lot of work that goes on. There's a lot of work that's going on by the Victorian government to strengthen work rights and protect, you know, vulnerable workers. But let's share the link somewhere in terms of your specific question about access after hours.
Awesome. So going back to the question, yeah, Wesa, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Would you mind asking the question again?
Yeah, of course. So the question is, what are some of the ways in which people can stay informed to serve the wider community in Melbourne? And I guess what were your experiences in accessing resources to do so?
Yeah, so continue to be informed, I guess. Obviously, yeah, looking at Study Melbourne website, I think for international students, it's a really good location to find out what's going on, and obviously MELD magazine as well. And I know you guys always write really good articles, especially promoting initiatives that exist. But also what I will also say is looking at local councils. I know it's really difficult for international students who are currently overseas, but the ones who are here, keeping an eye out on what's happening in the local council as well. They sometimes have really good resources to be able to help international students. So I think it's important to keep an eye out on that. And also, obviously, university universities also have got good resources. So yeah, keeping I guess, keeping an eye out for a wide range of things, because sometimes I notice with international students, they don't always read information that are sent to them, particularly from universities. And I do know that people do miss those information, even though the information is there. But also for, I guess, government, but universities and local councils, if any of them is around, to make sure that when information is provided to international students, it's presented in such a way that international students will actually understand, rather than just information provision. Because most people tend to just read the top line without necessarily reading everything down below in the first instance. So being able to present information in such a way that international students can digest really quickly, it's important, so that they know what's going on.
Amazing. That's a, I think, wonderful point there. So just to also add to that, I do think that, yeah, like the way in which we frame to international students are definitely important, keeping the language simple, straight to the point, but also caring and considered. And that's a lot of the stuff that MELD Community tries to do in the small way that we can. So yeah, wonderful. Just to see as well, Tarzon and Chris, do you have anything you'd like to add to the question?
I think, sorry, Wesa added all of the point that I was writing over here. I think one of the best resources that I found was through Study Melbourne and also through university. Even though I study in MIT, I have a lot of friends from RMIT, Swinburne, and Deakin as well. And like bigger university, they have so many resources. Like, for example, even they had a resource for learning about cryptocurrency, which is super new to everybody. And I feel that knowing, like, getting updated ourselves, like whichever social media we use, we need to be able to get in touch with these university resources. That could be really helpful. And also, as Wesa mentioned as well, the local council will be really helpful. And there are a few organizations that I feel I personally went to, few of the organizations called CMY and other organizations that actually helps in like, for example, I'm really keen to learn and thrive on public speaking, and I came to know about this organization CMY. And in Melbourne, there are a lot of organizations that actually help in particular. I think if you want to learn about leadership, you could always Google it. Google is the best way to access about resources. You have to know what you really want, and if you could like, for example, if you want to learn about legal services for international students, you could always type in Google, and that is one of the way you could do, or any social media platform following these resources could help.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, I don't know about everyone here in the room, but Google is basically my best friend, and it resolves a lot of the problems that I never knew I had. Go, Chris. Yeah.
Can I just quickly add to that? I'm sure we want to open up to questions soon. I think the other thing I'm really interested in, just going back to what Wesa was saying about the right sort of communication strategy in terms of engaging international students and and other potentially other hard to reach members of the community for whatever reason, is that peer-to-peer sort of model, and in terms of co-design of initiatives and co-design of marketing communication strategies. And one of the things that we're working on, and very, very pleased to announce that Tarzon's part of this initiative, is we are establishing an International Student Leadership and Innovation Network, where we'll be working with an expanded group of student leaders on this very topic, in terms of how can we reach students and those that aren't aware of our amazing programs and services.
Amazing. So just in view of time, I thought we'll move towards the audience questions. And to begin with, I'd just like to go around the room to see if any of you have a tip for those who are looking to develop a community or they have already developed a community, but they're looking to diversify and grow. So how would you go about that?
Yeah, so it's always good to work with people who have existing groups in other communities. So when I was at university, I was really active with a lot of the international students, but also in order to help them, I guess, move beyond their ethnic group or, you know, the group that they tend to hang around, I tend to work with leaders of other community groups and to be able to bring two groups together. That's always a really good way, because I think to actually get international students to actually go to, like, expand their networks is always going to be really difficult. So if you can, you know, it's almost like safety in numbers, right? So if you can actually have two groups together so everybody feels safe, so that's always a good way. But also in terms of people wanting to expand, it's basically through being okay to be uncomfortable and just go to different groups and try new things. The first few times is always going to be, oh, I don't know anyone. I don't know if I'll feel welcome. But then at the same time, once you take that step, you'll find that there's a lot of people who are willing to support you.
That's beautiful. Anyone else with tips?
I was going to say, look, always try and support yourself, but surround yourself with great people. I mean, some of my heroes, you know, Josh Farr, many of you know, Anita Van Ruin, you know, they delivered some amazing programs for us, but these are some of the key things that they talk about. Surround yourself with great people. And I'm a really big believer in sort of that, you know, change and innovation through discomfort. So always put yourself out there. Never be afraid to ask. There's some of the things I live by.
Lovely. Tarzon, with anything?
Yeah, I think I'm living up to Chris' suggestion about surround yourself with people who could actually help you grow. And I think putting out there, because I'm here more not just sharing my tips, I'm here to learn from Wesa, Chris, Tara, and yourself. And I believe that because my organization itself is in learning phase, we have delivered 3 programs till now. But I believe that starting an organization will itself take a lot of work. But once you put yourself out there, your organizers will grow. It will take time, because we started our organization in the mid 2020 and we got our first supporting event I would say during the March of 2021. So if you put yourself out, if you want to, like, if you're able to chat with people, you know, some people might feel odd, why is this guy approaching me? But it will be worth it, you know. That's my experience, not a tip, but an experience.
No, it's great. Moving on to the next Q&A, what are some of the most positive things that have surprised you when you were growing your communities? And yeah, we'd love to hear some cool ideas.
Anybody else want to start? I don't always want to be the first one.
Go, Wesa.
Positive experiences, was that the question?
Yeah, positive things that surprised you when you were growing your communities.
Yeah, I think how eager people are to help is probably one, because yeah, when you are actually thinking to yourself at home, thinking about how am I going to do this, it's always going to be hard. And you always ask yourself, oh, well, will this person listen to me, or, you know, will that person actually support me? But as soon as you take the initiative to actually approach people, it's surprising what they can do, and it's surprising how much support you actually get. So the important work is basically to start doing it. And for people who are thinking of starting any businesses right now, or, you know, starting organizations to support other students, yeah, just basically, you know, the people that is already around you, start from there first. So there's no need to think beyond that. It could even just be going to your lecturer and say, hey, I've got a group of students that I wanted to support. They might be able to open doors already. So it doesn't have to be really hard. And you don't have to think, you know, oh, I need to go to government departments straight away. Like, if this is something that you have no contacts in, but of course, you know, after today, you can always contact Chris. And also going to events like this, to be able to, and the reason why you would go to events like this is so that when you approach people, you can actually say, actually, I met you at, or I heard you at whatever festival. And so people are more willing to listen to you and actually listen to your requests as well.
I'll just, oh, sorry.
You go. Sorry.
I was just going to add a slightly different perspective, just for those of us that are joining us today, that are, you know, from the broader business community, or who are employers, or from government. Just the power of mentoring, and the power of working with other members of the community, in terms of, you know, growing and growing awareness, and growing a business, and growing your skills and understanding of the, you know, of some different issues. I've been very privileged in the LGBTIQ plus space to work and mentor with young trans people, for example. And the amazing thing out of that experience for me was how much I learned and how much I gained, and how that has fed into all the work that I've done in government. It informed the work I've done in terms of program design and understanding. So there's so much to gain, I think, and so much reward in terms of mentoring. And for international students, I think it's really relevant too, because there's so many amazing international student leaders, you know, and what the opportunity there in terms of mentoring other students, maybe those students have just arrived, or you know, those students that are struggling still offshore.
Awesome. Yeah, we're pretty much coming towards the end of this, and thank you all for really taking the time to share. I would also really love to thank Tara, Ingrid, and the StartSpace team for organizing this wonderful festival. We're truly lucky to get to be a part of this, and hopefully bring some insights to you today in this conversation. And above all, I also like to thank you, the audience, for taking the time to be here on a Friday. If you're calling in from Victoria or whichever lockdown you're experiencing, our hearts are with you. And yeah, go well, stay safe, and have a lovely weekend. Tara's going to do some closing remarks here, and she'll finish up. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I really enjoyed that, and I was pumping questions in as well, but we didn't even get to them. And I think there's so much more to be discussed here, and thank you for sharing a lot. I think some of the things I took out really was that silence can be really dangerous, and we don't ask enough. And as I spoke to that, and I think you kind of just got to ask, and shared experience is important too, because that's an interesting start to networking, and that's why we've got some different networking things happening across the Future Founders. That's what Anita's running one today, where after people can talk about the festival. So that was a great point. So I think getting started and communicating actually empowers the community to help put things back in, which is Chris said is mentoring, that I have to thank you for all stepping up and having this conversation. There's so much more to it. So thank you, Clara, Wesa, Chris and Tarzon. It was really great to have you here. And I would like to reiterate that there are lots of programs out there. We wouldn't have been able to pull this off without Study Melbourne. They're a major partner for the Future Founders program, and we wouldn't be able to offer this opportunity without their support. And so I do want to put out there studymelbourne.vic.gov.au, because you'll find some of those other programs that will help you and support you in your study for Victoria. And, come into StartSpace, become a member. They're here to support you too, to say, if I've got a business idea, you can help get the programs to help you move forward. So anyway, lovely to have you all. I hope you enjoy the rest of the festival, and we'll see you all again. Thanks.